Guys, I have a confession to make. I too am the Sun God. Welcome everybody to One Piece chapter 1130. My name is Sai, and today we are here to break down the latest chapter of One Piece and just have some fun talking about it. So with that being said, let's get right to it. So the first thing we get this week is yet another installment in Yamato's cover page journey. But this time around, something is actually happening to Yamato, because in the middle of the night, someone is sneaking in to steal Yasui's blade from her. And I'm like, yo, I see Yamato, I see Tama, but do you know who I don't see? I don't see Shinobu. Shinobu is nowhere to be seen. Last cover page, volume 16, they were in the exact same spot and Shinobu was with them. Is the person stealing the blade Shinobu? And if not, then where is Shinobu? Will she perhaps catch the thief in the middle of this act? I'm not exactly sure, right? So far, whoever has been committing the crime in Wano hasn't really made that much sense to me yet, right? I don't know what their end goal is. Yeah, they're over here kidnapping women, they kidnapped Minotomo out of all people, and now if this is them in this chapter, then they're also trying to take Yasui's blade. What's their end goal? Are they simply trying to sell all of these items and people on the black market to make a profit? Or do they have some ultimate goal in mind that we just don't see yet? I'm not too sure. But either way, now that they are trying to directly tie in Yamato into this whole thing, I feel like Yamato will now take the necessary steps to put an end to all of this illicit activity, right? Maybe Yamato's like, okay, they have my blade, I have to find the kidnappers, I have to find the perpetrators, let's get this going. Or perhaps Yamato can just sense somebody in the middle of the night trying to take that blade. I mean, hey, Yamato does have observation haki, so maybe some alarms are blaring in their ears right now, and she wakes up and stops the person before they actually snatch the blade. And then outside of haki, Yamato does have a dog Zoan devil fruit, so maybe she can just smell that somebody is nearby that she doesn't recognize. I think there's a lot of things here, and I'm glad that Yamato is finally being directly tied into some action, right? I want to see Yamato go absolutely berserk and put an end to whatever these Wano shenanigans truly are. So now, onto the first page of the chapter, we see Frankie taking charge of the group. He's like, hey, giants, listen up. We're calling off the search for Luffy. We tried what we could, we looked around all day, but we could not find them. Jinbei even contacted the local sharks, and they didn't find anything in the waters either. So, let's just go to Elbaph. But he does remind them to not get it twisted. He knows that Luffy and the gang are still alive. There's no way they'd be dead. And I love that he adds that in, because it just shows that they have that unwavering faith in Luffy. Like, dude, Luffy, he's been through hell and back. There's no way he's dead, right? Let's just go to Elbaph and hope for the best. And Robin backs us up, saying, yeah, they know that we're going to Elbaph. So one way or another, that is the perfect meetup spot. The Giants agree, and what I really loved about the Giants agreeing to this is that Dory and Brogy don't know who these guys are, right? They know Luffy, they know Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Nami, and Chopper. Well, actually, they don't know Chopper, but they don't know these guys. But just because they are Straw Hats, they follow them. And I just absolutely love that. I love that they just rallied behind them. They didn't ask too many questions. They're like, oh, if the little people say so, let's do it. That's a great idea. And yeah, they're sailing back to Elbaph now, but they are not there yet. There is still a chance that something could go wrong or that they could run into somebody while on the open seas. Hell, for all we know, they could be the group that runs into the man off the coast of Elbaph who's saying, come on then, right? We still don't know who that is. So maybe this group runs into that guy and they cause some problems on this front, right? Oda typically does that. One group does something, the other group does something else. So I do think there will be some eventful moments coming out of Frankie, Robin, Brook, and Jinbei's group here. So now, on to page 2, we cut back to Luffy's group and we see what was behind the wall we broke last chapter. Turns out that they made it. They are officially in Elbaph. Warland, the land of giants. And dude, I feel exactly the same way Nami feels in this page, because she's like, guys, everything is so big here, it's actually dizzying. It's giving me a headache. And I agree. I mean, the minute they pan out away from the Straw Hats and you can see how big the castle is, how big the bridge is, how big the mountains and the tree is, I'm like, dude, What? You know, the Straw Hats are literally ants in that page. But yes, turns out that we did break out of some sort of castle prison thing. And we have this giant suspension bridge from the castle that leads all the way up to the Yggdrasil tree. On that bridge, we see two giants approaching. It's actually Gerd and Goldberg from the new giant pirates. Of course, since the Straw Hats don't actually know these guys, they only know Harden, they end up hiding, which may seem a little bit silly at first, but it makes sense given their last interaction with a giant, i.e. Road, right? We don't know if these are Road's companions, which technically they are, but the Straw Hats don't know what their intentions are. But the intentions were good. Gerd and Goldberg were actually on their way to see who Road picked up, because Gerd's owl, Piper, actually saw Mugen bring a ship back to Road's castle. Bro, if the Straw Hats just waited one more chapter, they would have been fine, right? Because Road, while he didn't like working under Straw Hat Luffy, we don't know how the other giants feel. There's a good chance that Gerd and Goldberg respected Harden's wishes and respects Luffy, right? There's a chance that they get there and they're like, Road, what the hell are you doing? That is Mugiwara no Luffy you have locked up in that cage. And they would have beat that man down. I could see it right now. But either way, now that Goldberg and Gerd are about to see Road in all of his glory, you know, dressed up as the sun god burnt to a crisp in his prison cell, they're going to be able to put two and two together. At first, I was wondering if Road would be able to escape responsibility, but now that the new giant pirates are on their way to Road, I don't think he's going to get out of this scot-free. No. They're going to know what happened, right? And one thing to keep in mind is that right now, the Straw Hats do not know where the 1000th Sunny is. If Road has the 1000th Sunny, then yeah, Goldberg and Gerd are going to walk in the room, they're going to see the 1000th Sunny wherever it is, and they're going to be like, yo, Road, you messed up, dude. You're fired from the crew. Which we do come to find out the main reason why Road is in Harden's crew to begin with is simply because he is a really skilled navigator, which we did see in the last few chapters, right? Nami picked up the map, she used it, it was really detailed. So yeah, Road is a talented guy. He's just equally as creepy and weird. But yeah, Gerd really goes in on Road though, and she compares him to Loki. She says, Road is almost as shameful as Loki is. And I'm like, okay, right? I made fun of Road for 15 minutes last week straight. No breaks, no nothing. I was just making fun of Road. But hear me out. Road is just weird, right? Road is just a little bit deranged. Loki, though, right? I haven't gotten to Loki yet because I'm trying to go in chronological order, but Loki's a maniac. When Loki is introduced, we learn that he killed his dad for devil fruit, and we also learn that he wants to end the world. You can't really compare Road and Loki, right? Like, they're two different realms. But yeah, Gerd says that about him, and we also come to find out how Road was able to sequester so many humans into his toy box. And it's simply because he uses his crow Mugen to pick up ships and bring it back, and he labels these people as trespassers of Elbaph. And since Elbaph is a closed-off country, it is illegal to make landfall on Elbaph without permission. So Road is like, hey, these guys came onto Elbaph, woohoo, I'ma throw them in my prison cell. So yeah, he had a whole scheme going on, pretty scummy, and I gotta say, I'm surprised that no giants actually put a stop to Road sooner. Like, they know that he's bending the law to favor him, so why hasn't anybody said, hey, Road, we know you're flubbing the system, man. We know that your crow is bringing in innocent people. Like, you're telling me nobody stopped him? Crazy. But yes, after that happens, after Goldberg and Gerd pass through, the Straw Hats finally hop on that bridge. But Luffy, he decides to take a different route. He tells the rest of the Straw Hats to go on because he has been hearing the screams of a man this entire time. Even in that Legoland toy box, Luffy said he could sense a powerful person on this island and he wants to go visit. Zoro wants to go with Luffy, but Sanji stops him because he's like, yo, Zoro, you in a forest, brother, you're gonna get lost. Which, yeah, makes a lot of logical sense. I mean, Zoro got lost in Dressrosa with a guide. He had a Tontaro with him, and Zoro did not know where to go. So yes, we had to stop Zoro from going into that forest. We would have not seen him for the rest of the series. So Sanji, in a way, saved Zoro's life. So now that Luffy has departed from the group, the rest of the Straw Hats make their way to the Yggdrasil tree. They're making their way over to the capital of Elbaph. And yo, we're about to see some really crazy sights come next chapter. If we thought this chapter was insane, I feel like next chapter will hit even harder once we see what the towns are actually like. So one thing to point out though, is that when Luffy does jump down, the Straw Hats do warn him that there are giant wolves waiting for him down below. But that doesn't matter, because we literally see Luffy jump down, and then the next time we see him, he is unharmed right in front of Loki. So Luffy really made it through the entire forest of Elbaph with no problems whatsoever, which makes sense, right? Luffy is a Yonko, he has Gear 5th, dude. You gotta be a monster to actually be a threat to Luffy at this point. So we cut over though. We cut over back to Robin, Jinbei, Frankie, and Brooks' group. And they're reading the newspaper. And they're freaking the hell out. Because Big News Morgans, or should I say the world government, have falsely reported that the new giant pirates Dory and Brogy decided to help Luffy set Egghead Island ablaze. They helped him destroy everything. And that is when we see Dory and Brogy's new bounties. They are worth 1.8 billion berries each. And not just that, but they have their own individual bounty posters for the first time. Absolutely insane. That bounty is ridiculous to say the least. It's so crazy that their own crew couldn't believe their own eyes. It's nuts. Robin also equates this to inflation, right? Their old bounties were 100 years old. So of course, the way they gauge bounties nowadays is definitely a lot different. So yeah, 1.8 billion is well deserved. And also, given how well they held up against the Gorosei, give it to them, right? I mean, these guys blocked Warkity. They chopped Jupiter in half, even though they all regenerated. Like, these guys were menaces, and they played a vital role when it came to the Straw Hats' escape of Egghead Island. I still think that the Straw Hats would have escaped without the Giants' help, but the Giants definitely made it a lot easier. So now that we see that Dory and Brogy's bounty have increased since Egghead, I do wonder if the Straw Hat bounties have increased as well, because we don't see it in this chapter. But it would make sense if Luffy's bounty also got higher because of Egghead Island, right? Dory and Brogy got a boost because of Egghead. I feel like Luffy and the gang should get a boost as well. I mean, hell, they're saying that Luffy killed Vegapunk. Shouldn't Vegapunk's murderer get like a 1 billion berry boost? I think he should. So yeah, I am expecting Straw Hat bounty upgrades later on. Maybe they just don't want to show it right now because the group isn't exactly together, and they're just going to wait until they regroup with Luffy and the gang later. I could totally see that being the case, and as far as Luffy and the rest of them, I could see Luffy sitting at a cool 4 billion, and then all the other Straw Hats getting like a 300 to 500 million berry boost across the board. I feel like that would be pretty reasonable. So throughout the last few chapters, I've been mentioning that Oda has really stepped up his game here on Elbaph when it comes to facial expressions, right? They've become more goofy, more silly, and more expressive in a way. Like last chapter, for example, when Nami was annoyed with Road, we got a brand new Nami face. And then in this chapter, after reading the headline that Vegapunk has been killed by Straw Hat Luffy, Lilith has X's on her eyes, and she's like, oh, did I actually die back there? Could have fooled me. And then she just starts laughing, and I'm like, yo, this is hilarious. I really do just love that Oda's art style is still growing and evolving, even after 1,130 chapters, man. So outside of the headline, though, we see the images that accompany it. And Luffy has an X mark on his forearm. And Oda, you sly dog. My god. I was trying to come up with the reasons as to why Oda separated the Straw Hats the way he did. Of course, there's many layers to it, but this one is just another one of those goddamn layers, right? Because the Straw Hats that are currently present, the Straw Hats that are reading the newspaper, are the ones who are either not present during Alabasta, or straight up were not privy to this information like Robin, right? They look at it and they're like, hey, this is really weird. Did Luffy always have an X on his forearm? What's going on here? Like, maybe he just has it when he's in his, quote, most free form. And I'm like, bro, this is Vivi. This is literally Vivi sending a message to the Straw Hats. Of course, when it comes to what the message is, I feel like it's a simple I'm okay or I'm alive, right? Because this is something that they would understand. This is a symbol of their friendship that they threw up at the very end of Alabasta. It's also a signal that they're not Bon Clay, which is kind of funny, right? I feel like that meaning is lost. When you see the X, it has nothing to do with Bon Clay anymore. It's simply the really sad farewell to Vivi during Alabasta. But yes, the Straw Hats do not know what this means, so hopefully they bring this newspaper over and the gang that's on Elbaph realizes what this is all about. So that's another reason why I think there might be bounty upgrades alongside this, because I doubt the Straw Hats are just gonna whip out the newspaper and be like, hey Luffy, what is this about, right? I feel like we're gonna open it up to show the bounties, and after we see all the new bounties, we also see the newspaper headline one more time, and that's how this all goes down, or at least that's kind of what I'm envisioning right now. So yes, Vivi is definitely sending a message, but I do think that what Robin says in this chapter might have something to do with the X mark we saw in the Void Century, because we did have a flashback with Joy Boy and Emeth did have that X on his arm as well. So I think what Robin says here isn't exactly off the mark. Of course, it's off the mark with Luffy, but I think she might be on the mark with why other characters might have the X, right? Maybe Emeth was at his freest 900 years ago, and that's why he had the X, or that's why he painted the X on himself. Of course, that doesn't have to be the case, but I do just think that there will be some greater meaning or explanation as to why Emeth had the same marking that the Straw Hats do as well. So now that we have Vivi's message in the newspaper, I wonder what's going to come off of this, if something even does, right? Will the Straw Hats want to go to Big News Morgan's? I feel like that could be the case, but Big News Morgan's is an elusive bastard. We don't know where he's at. His ship literally flies around in the sky, and we don't really have any connections to him. Like Wapol, for example, he could pick up the Denden Mushi and call him over. The Straw Hats don't have that same luxury, so I don't think we're going to go out of our way to see Vivi, because we simply can't find her. You know, we don't have a Vivi card that leads us to her. So if we were to see Vivi in the near future, she would have to come to us, and I do think that is very possible, because in the newspaper, they reported that Dory and Brogy were on Egghead Island. So if Vivi just puts two and two together, she would realize that the Straw Hats are on their way to Elbaph. So they could simply fly over and land at the top of the Yggdrasil tree. I feel like that would make the most sense. And as far as Vivi being labeled as a trespasser, the Straw Hats can clear that up, right? The Straw Hats are welcome guests. We have Dory, Brogy, Oimo, Kashi, Saul, and possibly other giants on our side. So yeah, if Vivi shows up, I think that will be a non-issue. It would be kind of funny if Road tries to kidnap Vivi. Like, just imagine that. Imagine we go back to Road's castle and we see Vivi, Wapol, and Morgans. It's like, bro, Road, what are you doing, man? First Nami and now Vivi. When will this guy stop? I don't think that'll be the case, but I just think that's a funny scenario to play with, right? Road just picks up more people and it just happens to be characters that we know. But yeah, again, big shout outs to Vivi. I thought the way she sent this message was quite clever, ingenious, and I kind of wonder if Big News Morgans knew that Vivi was going to do this. I mean, hell, even if Big News Morgans didn't want her to do it, Vivi would just nag him to death until he just caved in. So maybe this is how Morgans got her to shut up, right? Because every time we see Vivi and Morgans, they're always arguing. So maybe he's like, hey, I'll let you draw the damn X on Luffy's arm. Will you just leave me alone already? Let me drop you off somewhere, please. But yeah, outside of this though, we do get some more lore here, right? Dory, Brogy, Oimo, Kashi, they spill the beans on what's been happening on Elbaph. And this all spawns because they're hyping up Luffy. They're like, oh, Luffy, he's on the same footing as red-haired Shanks, huh? That's so damn impressive. And also, we heard that he has Harden under his flag as well. Harden. As a kid, he was a little bit of a rapscallion. But either way, though, at the end of the day, he is still considered the son of the king. And it's like, what? Huh? Harden back from Dressrosa? That guy? The son of the king? Bro, that's crazy, man. So I'm gonna skip ahead for just 1 second, but looking back at what Harden did in Dressrosa, you know, going after the Marimar no Mi, It makes so much sense now, considering the fact that Loki considers himself the sun god. Maybe if Hardin was able to obtain the Mirror no Mi, he would be able to contest Loki's sun god title. And maybe he might have been able to rally the giants of Elbaph behind his fire. Also, now that we have this huge revelation, I do wonder if there's going to be other giants that come out in the future that are also related to Loki and Hardin. Maybe there's other brothers or other sisters even. So yeah, this revelation right here definitely explains why Hardin said back in Dressrosa that he wants to be the king of Elbaph. He wants to take that throne. He wants to surpass his father and also beat out his brother Loki. I love it, and I think this adds a whole new layer to Hardin's character that I personally was not expecting. You know, coming into this arc, I wasn't a big Straw Hat Grand Fleet enjoyer, right? Dressrosa wasn't bad, but I was like, okay, these guys are still base level. We don't know a lot about them. But now that we're getting more info, I'm like, yo, Barto looked pretty damn good. Hardin looks pretty damn good. Who's next? Who's the next Straw Hat Grand Fleet member that's gonna get some clout? So, now that we got the Hardin lore, we hear about the other son of the king, the legitimate son of the king, Loki. Before this chapter, we knew very little about Loki. We only have one scene about the guy, one person mentioning him, and that person was Big Mom. She was like, hey, I was supposed to marry Lola off to Loki to start a great alliance between the Big Mom Pirates and the Giants of Elbaph. It almost went down perfectly. Loki was head over heels for Lola, but Lola turned him down. And then because of that, we ended up severing our ties with the Giants completely. There was no coming back from that situation. And I was like, okay, you know, in that flashback, we got Loki on one knee, you know, handing a little flower to Lola. He was smiling, he had the crown on, and I was like, dude, this guy's a big buffoon, right? This guy's gonna be a loser, a lover boy. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, it just goes to show, right? A lot of guys, or most people in relationships, you have a side that you show your significant other. You're silly, you're goofy, you're lighthearted, but when you're with the boys, when you're not with your significant other, dude, it's like a light switch, right? That is Loki. That is completely Loki here. Like 1 minute, the guy is smiling from ear to ear, and then the next minute in this chapter, killing his dad, eating a devil fruit. We see him tied to a tree. He's calling himself the sun god, and he says he wants to end the world. Who is this guy? Oda, what happened to this man? It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. So yeah, we learn some Loki history here. The giants on the Elbaph ship tell us that Loki murdered his father, King Harold, for a legendary devil fruit that has been passed down for generations. And, you know, maybe I just don't see the vision, but I'm like, yo, Loki, you could have just waited, man. You're next in line. Why'd you have to kill him? You know, what happened to Loki to make him want to kill his dad to get that devil fruit early? Was it Lola's fault? Hey, maybe Loki is just a heartbroken fool, all right? Because the Lola thing happened a couple years back, so maybe it's a fresh wound. After Lola left him, he just went crazy. Maybe that's what caused him to become the cursed prince. I don't know. I mean, we all know heartbreak does change a person for better or worse. And it looks like for Loki, it might just be worse. Outside of Lola, though, I do wonder why Loki decided to kill his father for the devil fruit. Perhaps Hardin was going to get the devil fruit first, and he didn't want that to happen, so he killed the dad and took it for himself. Or perhaps did an event happen in the past that triggered all of this, that isn't simply just heartbreak. So yes, he killed his father, took the devil fruit, and he ate it himself. So whatever powers Elbaph has been passing down from generation to generation, Loki now has. Insane, bro. Insane. So after we get this reveal, we see that Luffy has made his way over to that crazy powerful scream he's been hearing ever since he hit the island. And what do you know? It's Loki. And we get a badass design. Well, it's badass upon my second or third time looking at him, but I will admit, the first time I laid eyes on Loki, I immediately saw Django. Bro, the curly hair, the fact that you can't see the eyes, and then the goatee, I was like, yo, is this Django? Yo, Django, what are you doing here? But no, it's not Django, guys. Don't let your eyes deceive you like it did me. This is Loki. And he does look really damn cool. He doesn't look like any giant we have seen before. You know, all the other giants, they kind of look a little bit silly, really lighthearted, but no. Loki, he has a completely different vibe to him altogether. So Luffy shows up in front of this madman, and Loki asks, "Who are you?" Luffy responds by saying, "I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the man who'll be king of the pirates." Loki responds by saying, "King, huh?" Luffy then inquires, "Where are they? Who are you? What is this?" And that is when we see the design of Elbaph in its entirety. And we also get the official spelling of Elbaph. It doesn't have an F at the end. It's actually the PH. So that's a big confirmation as well. But when we pan out, we see the giant Yggdrasil tree in its full glory. It looks nothing like the tree in Rhodes Playhouse. Loki tells us that this is the land of giants, the land of warriors, where the fires of war never cease, and that he is Loki, the sun god, and the man who will bring about the end of the world. And it's like, bro, what? What the hell is this intro? Who is this guy? Why? Back-to-back double pages? Oda. No, dude, this is fire, man. Loki, I don't know what to think of him yet. I really don't. Because if I were to base it off of appearances, he looks like a bad guy. I mean, come on, dude. He looks like a bad guy. And plus, we have first-hand accounts and stories from all of the giant warrior pirates as well. They're talking about how Hardin wanted to come to Egghead, but he couldn't because he had to deal with this problem. You know, it took all the giants at Elbaph to stop Loki from rampaging. And it's like, bro, Loki is powerful. You know, we can't beat around the bush. Loki is 100% powerful. He is no joke. It's not one of those scenarios in One Piece where people hype up a character and then we meet him and then he's a bozo. No, this guy is strong. And Luffy, I love this, but Luffy, despite talking to this madman, and despite Luffy knowing that this guy is powerful, right? Because Luffy could feel the screams of this guy from far away, Luffy's still smiling. No hesitation in Luffy's voice or face or anything. He's just like, hey, I'm Luffy. Who are you, man? What's going on? I love that. I love the confidence that Luffy has here, and I am really curious to see what's going to happen next. Because I think there's a good chance that Loki is going to ask Luffy to unbind him. Luffy, God, I'm gonna say it right here. Most shonen MCs are a little bit dull. You know, Goku is a good example. Goku just wants a good fight. So because shonen MCs tend to be of that variety, I do wonder if Luffy will just let this man go. Surely not, right? Surely Luffy's gonna look at the chains and the whole thing where Loki says he wants to end the world and Luffy's gonna say, oh, my bad, dude. I'm gonna just leave you be, right? I don't know. Like, I want to believe that Luffy won't release Loki from his chains, but there's also that 5% chance where it's like, dude, Luffy might just let him go for fun. This guy wants to destroy the world. What if Luffy wants to fight him? Luffy knows he's powerful. What if Luffy wants to test his abilities? For the sake of Elbaph, though, let's hope that isn't the case. So the first thing I want to talk about in regards to Loki is his potential devil fruit, because we have no real inclinations to go off of, right? All they say is that it's legendary, it's been passed down from king to king in Elbaph, so that's all we really have to go off of. Personally, I think it is something very powerful. I feel like it is something that has to relate to the sun god even, because Loki does call himself that. And I feel like, unlike Road, this guy actually means it. He actually does believe he is the sun god. So whatever powers he has, it either has to be rubbery or fiery. Since we have the Meru Meru no Mi and the Magu Magu no Mi with the Kainu already, I don't think it's going to be a Logia. You know, I do feel like it might err on the mythical Zoan side, which is a little bit unfortunate because I do want Logias and Paramecius to make a comeback. We've been getting a lot of mythical Zoans in the past few arcs, but hey, it is what it is. So I do think there is a chance that he could have some sort of Nordic mythical creature devil fruit that has fire to some extent. I'm not really well versed in Norse mythology, and I don't want to pretend to be. So if you guys have any ideas as to what it could be or what Loki might have, let me know down below. But yes, I do think it is something that does mimic the sun god properties. I have seen people saying that Loki might have the actual Gumu Gumu no Mi, and that is why he thinks he's the sun god, because he can stretch like the sun god. I think that makes a lot of sense. The one hangup though would be that Dr. Vegapunk said in chapter, I think 1071, 1070, he said that the Gumu Gumu no Mi does not exist in any Devil Fruit Encyclopedia book. So there would be that one gray area of, okay, if he does have the Gumu Gumu no Mi, why is it not in the books? Is it because Elbaph is a closed country and of course no information leaves? Or maybe the fruit just spawned, right? Because there's always a chance of that. Right, Vegapunk did say that devil fruit spawn based on the beliefs and imaginations of people. So maybe people dreamt to be rubbery like Sun God Nika, and then boom, a Gumu Gumu no Mi just spawned recently or 1,000 years ago and they just didn't tell anybody. I don't think that's that bad of an idea. One thing though, this is kind of like a tangent, but one thing I did find fascinating about Loki in his introduction panel is that it's snowing there, right? You see the snow covering his legs, the snow covering his hat, and I get it, right? When we first left Rhodes Castle, it was snowing. Elbaph is a snowy place because of the altitude. But it does make me wonder if the snow is nerfing Loki. If he is the sun god, maybe he can't use his powers here because it's snowing, which might sound a little bit stupid at first, but hear me out, right? Back when we saw Emu in his lost chamber or whatever we want to call it, we did see a straw hat and it was being kept in a cold area. People call it a refrigerator. So it's like, yo, like maybe there is something here. And then of course, like if he does call himself the sun god, then yeah, like snow would nerf him to some extent. So maybe there is some connection there. Either way though, I just want to go back to what I said earlier. Whatever devil fruit Loki does have, I do believe will mimic the sun god to some extent. Whether it's the fire, whether it's the stretchiness, or maybe even just the power of imagination, I think Loki has that ability. One thing I'm really curious about right now is how Shanks is connected to all of this. So going back to the beginning of One Piece, Shanks had the Gumu Gumu no Mi, aka the Sun God Nika Devil Fruit, in his possession. We have no idea what Shanks was actually going to do with that devil fruit. He himself didn't eat it, he didn't give it to anybody on his crew, so why did Shanks steal it from who's who? Well, maybe Shanks wanted to hand over the real Sun God Nika Devil Fruit over to the king of Elbaph, because whatever devil fruit they were passing down from generation to generation was a mimic, a fake Sun God Nika devil fruit. I could see that being the case, but also, spinning off of the Shanks theory here, I do wonder what part Shanks played when it came to subduing Loki. We do know that Shanks was on the island with Dory and Brogy initially before he went to go beat up Barto, so did Shanks assist the giants when it came to taking down Loki? Did Shanks perhaps tie him up to the tree even? Also, one thing that kind of piqued my curiosity was the title of the chapter, The Cursed Prince. A couple chapters ago, we had a chapter titled RPG, role-playing game, and that gave us good insight as to what Road - the Sun God was really all about. So with that being the case, I do wonder if we could pick apart this current chapter's title and deduce what Loki's powers are all about. Maybe he is the king of curses. Like perhaps his devil fruit actually has to do with him cursing people or bringing bad fortune in general. Oh yeah, another thing about Loki that really stuck out to me is the fact that his eyes are bandaged. And I'm like, why? You know, why are his eyes bandaged? We know that he just got done fighting all the giants of Elbaph, right? He survived multiple executions, so maybe his eyes are injured. But what are the chances of that, right? We don't have a lot of characters in the series with injured eyes, right? We're talking about Zoro, Shanks, and I think there's like one more character, Fujitora. Yeah, how would I forget Fujitora? The guy has no eyes. But yeah, I don't think that's the case. I feel like the reason why they're covering his eyes might have to do with his powers. Maybe we take off the bandages and then he can instantly, you know, hypnotize people. Maybe he can destroy things with his eyes like Saturn could. Or perhaps maybe they just want to hide his eyes because they're hideous. Maybe they're double layered eyes like Mihawk, like Emu, and like Hakuba. I think there's a lot of potential here, man. But yeah, Loki, dude, this design, this giant, his lore, it absolutely went insane this week. It is not what I expected in the slightest, and I love that. I love being wrong about One Piece because that means that Oda is still keeping me on my toes, right? Like I said, I was expecting a lover boy. I wasn't expecting this, which does make me wonder if Lola were to come back into the series, which if she does, I think that might just cause more problems because she's currently married to Gotti. But if Lola comes back by herself and without her husband, would Loki flip the switch? That is a genuine question, right? If Lola comes over and says, hey, honey, this isn't you. Maybe Loki will become a good guy again. Or maybe the reason why he wants to destroy the world is because of Lola. Maybe he read the newspaper and saw that Lola got married and he got really upset. That could be what triggered it, right? Because it sounds like they just recently subdued him. Well, what recently happened in the newspaper? Lola and Gotti got married. Is it Gotti? I think that's his name. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, guys. I kind of forgot the guy that Lola got married to. Let me look it up real quick. One Piece Lola. Yeah, Gotti. Yeah. She married Gotti. So yeah, maybe Loki learned about that, and that's why he wants to burn the whole world down. It's kind of like an Obito moment, right? You lose the girl. What do you do now? Well, you kill everybody and restart. Maybe that's it. Or perhaps Lola was memeing around, saying, hey, Loki, the reason I can't marry you is because of the world. I blame the world for the reason why we can't get married. And then Loki says, oh, the world? I'll burn it down for you, baby. Then we can get married. I do think that Lola is going to be his butch all put. I think it's going to be the one thing that really reels this character back, which now makes me curious to see what he's going to think about the Straw Hats, because the Straw Hats do have very good relations with Lola and the Beige Pirates. Maybe once Loki learns about that, he'll change his tune. But of course, that is very, very, very wishful thinking. That's me being completely optimistic, because according to all the giants thus far, all the giants that we trust and know, this guy's a madman. This guy is a lunatic. But yeah, man, last thing to talk about now is the Elbaph tree. Yggdrasil. Brother. That tree looks awesome. So first thing that I want to talk about that sticks out to me is the fact that it has this weird middle layer. I wonder if that's natural. I wonder if the giants, like, chopped the middle layer so that they could live up there. Or perhaps if the tree got cut in half at some point, and this is the tree rebuilding on top of itself, if that's how trees work. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. I think there'll be some cool lore to it as well. Like, oh, somebody almost cut down Yggdrasil, but we stopped him halfway. We also see a giant sword. Speaking of cutting, we see a giant sword that is piercing the branches of the Yggdrasil tree, and it is massive. Bro, that is like the size of like 100 giants put together. That sword is insane. And it does make me wonder who wielded it in the past. Who was able to pick up that blade? Because we've seen the size of giants. We've seen the size of ancient giants. Nobody can pick that up. The only person that I think would have been able to wield that is Sun God Nika and or Joy Boy. Because if you have that Sun God Nika devil fruit, you can just make yourself bigger. So who's to say Luffy can't make himself that size and simply pick up the sword? And also, we did see, and who's visualization of Sun God Nika did have a sword and a spear. So maybe this is Sun God Nika's sword right here. I think that could be pretty dang plausible. And it looks like a really cool blade. Obviously we can't tell color based on the manga, but it even looks like a black blade, guys. It even looks like a black blade. Funny enough, I even had a friend of mine point out that the sword kind of looks like Mihawk's blade. At least the base of it does. And if this is Sun God Nika - Joy Boy's blade, I could totally see this being named Asa for day. Because Mihawk's sword is named Yoru, which means night. So if this is the opposite, maybe this is daybreak or something akin to that, which would be very fitting for Joy Boy and or Sun God Nika to wield. And so now the next thing that really stands out to me about this Yggdrasil tree is the fact that there are waterfalls coming down from its leaves. And it's like, bro, what is going on here? This isn't natural. You know, trees don't just have waterfalls at the top, bro. So I wonder what's going on here. Of course, I want to take this leap and say that Yggdrasil is the Atom Tree. And if that is the case, then I think this makes a lot of sense. So going over to the Atom Tree's counterpart, the Eve Tree. The Eve Tree is able to take sunlight from the top and bring it down to the bottom, all the way down to Fishman Island. Maybe, if this is the Atom Tree, it does the exact opposite of the Eve Tree. Like how the Eve Tree takes things from the top and brings it to the bottom, maybe the Atom Tree, its roots are in the water, and it sucks the water up, takes it to the treetop, and then pours it down. You know, it'd be like a yin and yang kind of thing going on there. Eve Tree, top to bottom, and then we have the Atom Tree, bottom to top. I think that right there makes a lot of sense, but of course, this is One Piece we're talking about. For all we know, next week, Oda could say, hey, water just spawns at the top of the tree. No big explanation needed, right? But yeah, those are my thoughts on the chapter, guys. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it down below. What type of devil fruit do you think Loki has? What do you think about his design? What do you think about the giant sword piercing the Yggdrasil tree? Well, it's not exactly piercing. It's like piercing the branches or just nested in the branches. But either way, it's there. What do you think about the sword? What do you think about Loki's backstory? What do you think about the Lola connection? I would love to hear any and all of your thoughts and opinions and theories down below, and we will be going through and reading the comments here in the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that, and that is why I would love your guys' input. But for now, that is all I have for today. My name is Sai, and I'm signing out. Peace, guys.